My dear listener, allow me to guide you on a journey of reflection that you may have never permitted yourself to take. How many times in the stillness of the night have you watched your child's serene, sleeping face and found yourself lost in a whirlwind of doubts? The eternal question echoes like an anguished whisper. Am I protecting too much or preparing too little? As a psychoanalyst and keen observer of human drives, I can tell you that this uncertainty is not a flaw, but the purest expression of parental love. It is within the conflict between the instinct to protect and the need to set free that the essence of true human growth resides. Overprotection often disguises itself as extreme care, but through the lens of psychoanalytic analysis, it reveals itself as an unconscious attempt to control the unpredictable. The fear of pain, of failure, of social rejection leads parents to build invisible walls around their children. But what these walls actually do is block life from entering in its most authentic form. Just as gold must be refined by fire, the character of a child is only strengthened when exposed to challenges, small failures, and the frustrations that shape the resilient adult of tomorrow. On the other hand, to completely abandon the protective role is to plunge the child into emotional neglect, something that can leave an indelible mark on the child's unconscious. Here lies the paradox that psychoanalysis understands so well. Too much protection suffocates, too little abandons. The balance, dear listener, is not found in extremes, but in the wisdom of offering the child the space to experiment, while also providing the emotional safety net that lets them know they can always return. To educate is, above all, an act of silent courage. We live in a time where the excess of information, social expectations, and unreachable standards of parental perfection have become true modern tyrants. Guilt, that cruel and silent companion, feeds on the illusion that there is an infallible manual for raising children. But every child is unique, every journey is singular. The great Freudian lesson is this: do not strive to be the perfect father or mother, but rather a human being aware of their limitations, willing to learn, to repair, and to love unconditionally. Today, I invite you to free yourself from this invisible prison. The question is not whether to overprotect or abandon, but to transform yourself into a facilitator of your child's emotional development. This requires a careful awareness of your own anxieties and a sensitive ear to the real needs of the child. In this video, we will uncover together, from the profound perspective of psychoanalysis, the path that leads to the formation of emotionally healthy individuals, prepared for the inevitable struggles of life. Prepare yourself, for this reflection may forever transform the way you see your role as an educator. If there is a setting where the essence of psychoanalysis manifests in its most dramatic form, it is in the relationship between parents and children. When a newborn is placed in the arms of their parents, the bond that is established transcends the physical. It marks the beginning of an invisible contract, formed in the unconscious, filled with expectations, fears, and projections. The baby is not born as a blank slate. They carry instinctive drives that quickly intertwine with the unconscious anxieties of the parents. Freud taught us that at this very moment, the parental ego begins to take shape, for as the adult tries to protect the child's fragility, they also struggle with their own insecurities and unresolved traumas. As they watch their child take their first steps, it is natural for the parent's heart to oscillate between the ecstasy of achievement and the fear of falling. This duality, this eternal dance between allowing and restricting, is a perfect metaphor for the human psyche itself. The pleasure principle and the reality principle, so well described by Freud, silently collide within the heart of the parent. The desire is to spare the child from any suffering, but reason quietly whispers that every stumble, every disappointment, is a necessary lesson for character formation. Like careful sculptors, parents find themselves compelled to remove the excess marble to reveal the true statue the child will become. Yet overprotection creeps in almost imperceptibly. It begins with small gestures, carrying the backpack the child could carry themselves, shielding them from a challenging peer, anticipating every need so they never experience frustration. Psychoanalysis warns us that this behavior is, in reality, a reflection of the adult's unspoken inner anxieties. The child ceases to be treated as an autonomous being in development and becomes an emotional extension of the caregiver. The child, sensing these limits imposed by love, may unconsciously internalize the idea that the world is too dangerous to explore without constant supervision. This cycle is intensified by contemporary society, where an excess of information, standards, and unrealistic comparisons prevail. Social media, forums, and experts constantly weigh in on the correct way to parent, further amplifying parental guilt and doubt. Freud reminds us that the superego, that psychic agency representing societal norms and expectations, becomes especially strong in this context, turning the act of parenting into an emotional minefield. Many parents, gripped by the fear of making mistakes, choose to err on the side of excessive care, unaware that they may be stifling their child's emotional and cognitive development. And thus we arrive at one of the great ironies of modern parenting. In trying to eliminate all risks from their child's path, parents may raise individuals who are less prepared to face those risks alone. Moderate suffering, frustrations, and even small injustices are, according to Freudian theory, essential elements for the child's ego to strengthen and learn to deal with reality. To deny this opportunity is to prevent the individual from developing the psychic mechanisms necessary to overcome future conflicts. Excessive protection unintentionally becomes the seed of chronic insecurity. The true mission of the conscious parent is, therefore, to find the subtle balance between nurturing and letting go. As we continue along this deeply human analysis, it becomes impossible not to reflect on the origins of this visceral need for parental control. Freudian theory suggests that often parents seek in the raising of their children a way to repair their own internal fractures. The phenomenon of transference, so extensively explored in psychoanalytic practice, also occurs outside the therapy couch. The adult projects onto the child the hopes, fears, and unfulfilled ambitions of their own life story. Unknowingly, many parents turn their children into repositories of unrealistic expectations, immersing them in a sea of emotional obligations they are not even aware of. This transference, when left unrecognized, can feed the cycle of overprotection. The child becomes a symbolic extension of the parent's narcissism, and the unconscious desire to keep this perfect creation safe from any threat gains strength. The act of protection ceases to be a gesture of genuine love and becomes an unconscious attempt to preserve the parent's own idealized image of being a good father or good mother. Freud warned that this mechanism can generate intense distress for both parents and children. The child feels, even if only vaguely, that they live to satisfy expectations that are not their own, while the parents experience constant anxiety and a sense of imminent failure. But there is a way out of this distressing dilemma. The key, according to Freud, lies in the adult's ability to recognize their own drives and unresolved conflicts. Parental self-awareness becomes an essential tool to break the cycle of symbiotic dependence. When parents allow themselves to look inward with honesty, understanding that their anxieties do not have to be eased through their children's lives, a new and liberating space opens. The child ceases to be the parent's project and is instead seen as an autonomous being with desires, capabilities, and boundaries of their own. This process, however, does not come without pain. Letting go of the fantasy of total control requires a true symbolic mourning. Freud teaches us that every loss, including the loss of parental omnipotence, is accompanied by psychic pain, but it is also a unique opportunity for growth. By accepting that the child must fall in order to learn to get up, parents give the greatest gift possible: permission for the child to build their own life narrative. This is the moment when overprotection transforms into conscious and loving preparation for adult life. Now I invite you, viewer, to reflect. To what extent might your own insecurities be guiding your parenting choices? In your eagerness to shield your child from any suffering, could you unintentionally be depriving them of the chance to develop the internal tools needed to become a resilient and self-confident adult? Before we continue our journey, take this moment to subscribe to the channel and become part of our community of reflection and learning. Share in the comments your experiences, doubts, or challenges on this universal topic. Your participation enriches our dialogue and strengthens this chain of self-awareness we are building together. As we move forward, it becomes necessary to deepen our understanding of how the child's psyche reacts to overprotection. Freud, in his investigations into ego development, demonstrated that a child learns to deal with reality through small, everyday frustrations. It is these small pains that teach self-control, resilience, and the ability to delay gratification. When adults completely eliminate these opportunities, even with the intention of protecting, the child becomes trapped in a state of psychic dependency that can extend into adulthood. The result is an individual unable to face adversity without external support or constant validation. Within Freud's construction of the mind, the absence of natural challenges prevents the proper formation of the ego, the mediator between the impulsive ID and the moralizing superego. A child's ego that is not challenged loses the chance to develop essential internal resources, such as decision-making, adaptability, and self-confidence. Overprotection, therefore, can act as a kind of emotional anesthesia, preventing the child from developing psychological antibodies against the inevitable pains of existence. It is not uncommon for adults who grew up under this excessive care to suffer from anxiety, social insecurity, or a paralyzing fear of making mistakes. Freud also pointed out that excessive care can produce an unexpected effect: delayed rebellion. Many young people who felt trapped by constant rules and restrictions end up breaking away from parental authority abruptly and painfully. This phenomenon, called oppositional reaction, is a natural psychic response to the feeling of excessive control. What initially was a secure bond transforms into rejection, emotional distancing, or even intense conflict. The child, upon becoming an adolescent or adult, seeks to reclaim the autonomy that was denied, often in extreme ways. On the other hand, the path proposed by Freudian psychoanalysis is one of progressive trust. The parent who understands this psychic dynamic adopts the posture of a guide, not a jailer. The child must feel they have freedom within healthy limits, which Freud defined as the internalization of norms. When discipline is applied with affection and dialogue, without oppression or arbitrariness, the child integrates these values into their own psychic structure. They no longer obey only out of fear of external punishment, but because they have internalized the importance of rules for social coexistence and for their own safety. Thus, true preparation for life does not occur in the absence of challenges, but in the building of a relationship of mutual trust between parents and children. By allowing the child to explore the world, even at the calculated risk of making mistakes, the adult sends the most powerful message possible: I trust you. This symbolic gesture strengthens the emotional bond and allows the child to develop emotional autonomy, self-esteem, and inner security. In the next section, we will delve even deeper to understand how modern culture has intensified this dilemma and how we can reclaim the lost balance. As we look at the current landscape, Freudian analysis finds fertile ground for even more complex interpretations. Modern society, with its accelerated pace and ever-increasing demands for performance, has greatly widened the gap between overprotection and preparation. In the past, children learned early to assume responsibilities within the home or community. Today, environments have been meticulously sanitized of risks and discomforts in the name of safety, which ironically often prevents the development of autonomy. Freud, who viewed conflict as an essential element of psychic evolution, would certainly have warned of the dangers of a childhood artificially free of obstacles. Technology has further intensified this dynamic. Parents, eager to protect their children from the frustrations of the real world, end up offering instant gratification in the form of electronic devices, games, or continuous entertainment. Freud would recognize here a classic mechanism of psychic compensation: immediate pleasure as an escape from existential anxiety. By providing momentary relief, the adult avoids the necessary confrontation with the child's natural limitations. The child, in turn, becomes accustomed to not facing boredom, waiting, disappointment, or the need to devise solutions to everyday problems. Another disturbing element of this scenario is the hyper-competitiveness imposed on children from a very early age. Whether in academic performance, extracurricular activities, or on social media, children find themselves constantly measured, evaluated, and compared. The superego, as theorized by Freud, becomes an internal judge, harshly demanding unattainable standards of perfection. This generates anxiety and guilt, feelings that can corrode self-esteem and further weaken the child's ability to face reality in a healthy way. Overprotection, in this context, becomes an emotional overload, creating a paradox. The attempt to spare suffering ends up producing even more suffering. But there is hope. The solution proposed by Freudian psychoanalysis remains valid and powerful: to strengthen the ego through gradual experiences of autonomy. The conscious parent learns to tolerate the emotional discomfort of seeing their child fail, understanding that these small defeats are necessary for the construction of a whole and resilient adult. The process requires patience, trust, and the courage to let go of the fantasy of total control. As Freud said, to be fully human is to accept conflict as part of existence. Preparing a child for life, therefore, means trusting in their ability to navigate the uncertainties of the world. Thus, we arrive at a crossroads that invites deep reflection. What kind of adult do you wish to help shape? A dependent, fragile being, eternally waiting to be saved, or an autonomous, confident individual capable of facing the inevitable challenges that life will bring? In the next and final section, we will explore together the practical attitudes and Freudian principles that can help you achieve this essential balance between protective love and liberating preparation. As we enter the final part of this psychoanalytic journey, it becomes essential to understand how Freudian knowledge can be applied to the practice of parenting. Freud always maintained that the first step in any transformation is self-awareness. Therefore, parents who wish to balance protection and preparation must first turn their gaze inward. Acknowledging one's own insecurities, anxieties, and projections is an act of profound courage and emotional maturity. Self-analysis, a powerful tool advocated by the Viennese master, can be the path to break unconscious patterns of overprotection and allow a healthier and more genuine relationship with one's children. This new stance means replacing excessive control with a bond built on respect and active listening. Freud taught us that genuine listening is one of the greatest acts of love. By listening without judgment and without trying to shape the child's every response or behavior, the adult provides space for the child to discover themselves and develop in their own essence. It is in this context of acceptance that the child's ego finds fertile ground to flourish. The child understands that their feelings, doubts, and even mistakes are welcomed, which strengthens their self-esteem and encourages them to become responsible for their choices. Another essential principle inspired by Freudian psychoanalysis is the clear yet flexible setting of boundaries. Boundaries are not synonymous with authoritarian rigidity, but rather with emotional security. They function like the frame of a painting, allowing the child to explore their possibilities within a safe structure. By gradually experiencing small doses of responsibility, the child internalizes a sense of competence, so fundamental to their psychological health. The adult's role ceases to be solving everything for the child, and instead becomes that of a mentor who guides and trusts in the child's potential. Finally, Freud would emphasize that parenting does not require perfection, but rather authentic presence. The myth of the perfect father or mother only serves to fuel anguish and guilt. Being an emotionally healthy educator means, above all, being human, admitting faults and turning mistakes into opportunities for mutual growth. It is in this space of honest imperfection that the truest bond is established, one that endures even in the face of life's adversities. By choosing to prepare rather than overprotect, the adult does not abandon love, but transforms it into the noblest of its expressions, trust. Now that our theoretical journey has come to an end, you, the viewer, are invited to reflect on the lessons explored here. What practices can you adopt today to foster your child's emotional autonomy? Leave your answer in the comments and share with us your experiences and challenges in this universal and timeless mission of raising a human being. And if this content has brought you value, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and be part of this community that seeks, in the light of Freudian psychoanalysis, to create more conscious, loving, and liberating family relationships.